What's going on, guys? I'm Tim Kelly. He's Anthony SanFilippo. This is Phillies Stoplight. We may or may not be recording this during a rain delay and hoping everything stays accurate after the rain delay. Break the fourth wall down here. But the Phillies, obviously the regular season winding down. They have one more series this weekend with the Twins, which in all likelihood won't mean a ton. It's about getting out, and you're going to be that number 2 seed in all likelihood. So a few bigger picture questions I want to get to today. The first being, what does Walker Buehler's role end up being? Because statistically, he has been very good since he's come to the Phillies. Rob Thompson said before today's game that he thought he was in a really good position to be on the playoff roster. I guess what do you view his role as being on that playoff roster?
I think right now, Tim, you got to look at Walker Buehler as a multi-inning reliever. I think that's what it's going to be. There's no reason to kind of line him up as a starter. And if you watched how he started in this game, which we at this time that we're recording don't know the final score of, it's 1-0 Phillies in the 9th inning. I lied. Bottom of the eighth. Bottom of the eighth. 1-0, bottom of the eighth in this rain delay. But Buehler didn't have great command in this game. He walked a few guys, hit a batter, only got up 3 hits, but didn't allow a run. So he kind of pitched out of trouble. He had some good defense behind him, a couple of hard hit balls, but Bader made a couple plays in the outfield. Sosa line drive double play at shortstop, so that kind of helped him get out of those tougher spots. That being said, I think you look at him and say we're not going to have him start and pitch multiple innings, 4 or 5 innings in a game, but we can go 2 to 3 if need be in a relief outing. And so I think that's what Walker Buehler is going to be, maybe as a piggyback for Aaron Nola in the NLCS, for example, or if you need him sooner than that, if Rangers getting tired early in the game, you can go to Buehler in innings 5 and 6 and maybe kind of bridge yourself to the back end of the bullpen. So I think that's the role that he's going to fit for the Phillies in the postseason.
Well, and I think he gives you some insurance. So Ryan Kerkering and David Robertson have both kind of struggled down the stretch, particularly Kerkering, but Robertson as well. So he gives you a little insurance as another potential right-handed option to close out the World Series last year. Now look, I have some skepticism about how sustainable it is. He has an 0.66 ERA and 13 2/3 innings with the Phillies. I don't feel like he's pitched anywhere. I don't feel like this has been a dominant stretch necessarily. The stats will tell you, at least the traditional stats would tell you, this has been like a Cy Young level stretch. He gave up a lot of hard contact. In Arizona, he gave up a 421-foot double. He had another one hit to deep right center that probably would have been a home run in some parks. So to a degree, I feel like some of this is unsustainable, but I certainly think he's pitched his way into being on the playoff roster. And I know this will become a talking point. I don't see a scenario where he starts Game 4 of an NLCS over Aaron Nola. It's gonna be a talking point because Aaron Nola struggled. But I think Aaron Nola, right or wrong, is in year 2 of a 7-year contract. There's immense respect for him, and it's one thing, I don't think he's going to pitch in the NLDS. I think he'll be on the roster, and ultimately, maybe he pitches in a game that's out of hand one way or another. I think there's a distinct possibility he's on the NLDS roster and does not pitch. But if it goes to a 7-game series where you don't have the off day between game 1 and 2 like you do in this case, I think you're going to need a 4th starter. You're definitely going to need a 4th starter, and I think it's going to be Aaron Nola.
Well, not only that, you're going to need a 4th starter. Let's say you play in the NLDS and it goes 5 games.
Right.
That 4th starter is going to be needed game 1 or 2, right? Yeah. I mean, right away. And not only that 4th starter is going to probably have to start 2 games in an NLCS if you go the distance in the NLDS. So the 4th starter is important, and it might not be for a little bit down the line. But I would sit there and say to you, Tim, that Walker Buehler would have to really have blown them away to supplant Aaron Nola as the number 4 guy. He would have really had to been pitching lights out. And while he's pitched with some guile, right, and a little bit of grit in his game there, and done a nice job keeping runs off the board, he hasn't exactly been facing the toughest lineups, and you're not going to throw Walker Buehler out there against the Dodgers and expect him to get away with what he's gotten away with.
Well, it kind of reminds me of how Ranger Suarez pitched in the NLDS last year against the Mets, where it was like this gutsy outing where you're like, how is he doing this? He was terrible in the second half last season, wasn't particularly healthy. and wasn't even pitching that well, and then goes out and pitches like 4 2/3 shutout innings or whatever it was in an elimination game. So
left a bunch of guys on base too.
Right. So he walked the tightrope, and I just think that's kind of unsustainable. And in this case, I would say it is too. But no question, he's pitched well enough to be on the postseason.
Interesting thing we're gonna have to find out about Buehler post game is he got pulled after 5 innings. It was the plan. They went to Taijuan Walker. They want to give Walker a bullpen outing. He pitched 2 innings in this game. But Buehler, after 74 pitches, decided to go out to the bullpen and to keep throwing. Looked like he threw about another 15 pitches or so. So maybe I wanted to get up to like 90. I don't know if that was his call, if it was the team's call. We'll find out after the game, whenever it may end tonight. We'll find out.
If it ends.
If it ends, yeah.
The second thing I want to get to is the final spot on the bench.
Yeah.
And we're assuming here that because you have the off day between games 1 and 2, that you take 14 position players and 12 pitchers for the NLDS, and then the NLCS you'd go back to 13 and 13 because it's a 7-game series and because you don't have that day off between games 1 and 2. Some people think this is like a 3-man race. I don't see a scenario where Weston Wilson is not on the roster. Whatever the role may be, I don't see a scenario where he's not on the roster. And then it comes down to me for that final spot between Otto Kemp and Johan Rojas.
And it's funny that, everybody's going to be saying, Tim, Johan Rojas, what are you talking about? He hasn't been here for a couple months. The reality of it is that he provides something that the last man on a bench in a 5-game playoff series can provide, which is speed and defense. Now, he's not the greatest base runner. He's a little bit of a knucklehead sometimes on base. Even in the outfield, he makes some great catches, but he sometimes makes it harder than it needs to be. That said, this creates is an opportunity for Rob Thompson to feel a little bit more free about the substitution left-right with his outfielders. And in a specific case would be if you're starting Brandon Marsh and Max Kepler and they bring a lefty in, the opponent brings a lefty in out of the bullpen, and you pinch hit with Nick Castellanos, you now have the option to go to a better defensive outfielder for Castellanos if you have the lead late in the game, rather than keep him out in the outfield. If you are comfortable with where you are with your outfielders, what the score is or whatever, and you think Johan Rojas can go out there and steal a base for you or whatever, score from first on a double, he also provides that as well. I would be hard-pressed unless they got late into a game, extra innings, and he subbed in at some point. I don't see Johan Rojas starting a game or even getting in at bat in the playoffs. No. In my mind.
Yeah, no, this would strictly be a situation where he's getting coming on as a defensive replacement and or a pinch runner late in the game. So I think that's kind of the situation you're in with Johan Rojas, and I get the strategy argument for it. Maybe I'm being naive here, but the merits to me still say Otto Kemp. And I don't know that I would have said that when he got recalled, but he has hit so well since he's been recalled. He has had a better season, been a more impactful player for the Phillies this season. And I do think it will be a real decision. Like, I'm not scoffing at it. It wouldn't surprise me if they go with Rojas. In the interest, though, of like being fair, and maybe that isn't what should be your concern this time of year, but I think it matters maybe more than some people would like to acknowledge. I think Johan Rojas does not deserve to be on this playoff roster the same way that Otto Kemp does.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Tim. When you look at it from that perspective, I guess the only thought process is that Otto Kemp and Weston Wilson seem a little bit repetitive, right? I mean, they're very similar type of players. Basically play the same positions. Basically do really well against left-handed pitching. I think Wilson hits the ball a little bit harder than Kemp with more regularity. Kemp certainly has hit the ball hard. He's hit with 7 home runs, I think he has this year. So I mean, he's done his job. But I think that you're looking at it and saying, if we go that route, and even though he deserves it, you're creating a situation where you have 2 of the same player on your roster, whereas Rojas gives you a different dynamic that can help your team win a playoff game. And I think that's what really matters to the Phillies right now more than anything else.
Well, and without opening up another can of worms, you do have to get it, you have to have buy-in from everybody. And how will it go if Nick Castellanos comes on as a pinch hitter and then you immediately tell him he's coming out of the game after that? I think it's a fair question to ask. So it's something to consider as you get into this postseason roster. The final thing, Anthony, that I want to get to is I discussed this at length the other day, and without making this video obsolete in 6 hours, because we don't know how the standings are going to shake out, but who do you think is the best matchup of the four teams, the Reds, the Diamondbacks, the Mets, and the Dodgers, and the NLDS for the Phillies? Who do you believe would be the best matchup for them?
The Mets.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of lean that way because, and I think the Citi Field thing is a real thing.
Sure.
If for nothing more than the fact we're going to be there on the workout day between games 2 and 3 asking them about it. Certainly if the Phillies have not won both of the games at home. But the Mets, and I'm going through this for an article I'm writing for Bleacher Report about every team in the playoffs, their ace. I had to put Nolan McLean down there. I mean, a guy that's made less than 10 starts in his major league career, because every single one of their veteran pitchers has just absolutely collapsed in the second half.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be naive. You get into the playoffs, anything can happen. I get all that. But the Mets got into the playoffs in the second half last year after having been a really good team in the second half. They have not been that this year. I get that they have a great closer and some really imposing hitters, but the pitching staff is just so much of a concern. I can't envision them winning a postseason series.
Right. Well, so that's why I don't even think it's going to matter. I think we're sitting here saying the Mets are the best matchup. I don't think the Mets are getting past the Dodgers. I think that's going to be the Phillies and the Dodgers, and the NLDS is what it's going to end up being. Unfortunately, because that's a matchup that should be for the NLCS, because in my mind they're the two best teams in the National League. But when you look at it, the whole thing with the Mets, Tim, to me is it's not that the Mets have the Phillies number. It's the Phillies are in their own heads when it comes to Citi Field. Yeah. You saw what the Phillies did to the Mets when the Mets came here. They blew them away in 4 games. Like, they really, it was one or two games were a little bit closer, but they swept a 4-game series against the Mets in Philadelphia. The talent versus talent, the Phillies win hands down. It's a matter of, can they get past the mental block of Citi Field and what's been happening to them there over the last few seasons. That's what the Phillies will have to get past. And ultimately, I'll say this. If the Phillies play the Mets in the playoffs and they lose to them again because they can't win in Citi Field, that tells you all you need to know about the Phillies. It doesn't tell you anything about the Mets. It doesn't say that was the worst matchup. It tells you what the Phillies, what they're made of, right? And you might want to say that this is a team that you root for and think that they can win a championship, and they certainly can. But if you can't get over the hurdle of playing in a particular stadium, then maybe you don't ever deserve to win a championship. So that's, to me, it's about the Phillies and not about the opposition.
Yeah, we'll leave you on that positive note. Anthony's ready to do the post-mortem for the season. In any event, regardless of when and where they play, we will be at every game, both of us, home, road, everything, for the remainder of the season. I hope everyone's appreciated our coverage this year, and throughout the rest of the season, we will have you. So check out everything on Pattison.com, and we will talk to you guys next time.